Hey, everybody, it's Friday. Welcome back to Behind the Numbers with the Wilsons. I'm joined, as always, by Andrew Wilson, where we're going to break apart, take apart, and examine in fine detail the polling of the week. Our theme of Donald Trump and Republicans in distress and trouble is unbroken.
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 Happy birthday, because it just gets worse for Donald Trump today.
Thank you. It is my birthday today. Happy birthday to me, I guess. And it does get worse for Donald Trump. 1 year on my birthday, there was some like spectacular news for Trump, and I was like, God damn it. Well, not this year, folks. He has taken a massive defeat in the House on the passage of the Epstein bill. He has taken a massive whooping on the perceptions of his handling of every issue. He has taken a massive whipping on the intent of the voters coming up this year. We're going to break this all apart today. So, Andrew, let's start with Epstein. Did not work out. The idea that they suddenly embrace transparency is not really believed by the public.
I mean, they're doing such a poor job of damage control that it's making it worse and worse. They constantly work against themselves with this issue. The more Trump talks about it, the worse it gets for him. The walls, I think, for him feel like they're closing in. So that's why he's lashing out in anger constantly.
That's why we're seeing all this crazy behavior, folks.
So I think this is from the Reuters Ipsos poll. They asked a few questions about Epstein and the Epstein case. So only 44% approve of how he's handled the issue.
Right.
Half of people say that the government's hiding more about it. And 60% of people say that the government is hiding things about the death and the clients. So, people don't feel like. And I imagine
that Pam Bondi's performance the other day did not exactly build like a lot of public confidence in this thing, because it was such a put job. Like, we will within the confines of the law and
more information, new information.
No, heck of a job, Pamela Joe.
That was great. I think that really helped things.
That was really just like so steady. Good job.
This just keeps boiling more and more. They keep fanning the flames of it by I don't necessarily know what the best move for Trump and Republicans would be as far as Epstein, but they certainly aren't doing that.
Look, the problem is the only move in any crisis is to reveal as much as you can, as fast as you can, as honestly as you can. If we take that 27,000 document tranche that was released, imagine this, Andrew, it was only Monday.
Yeah. Only Monday.
So they released 27,000 of these emails. Or was it Friday? I don't know. Less than a week ago. And Trump is mentioned in 1,800 of them. And there are somewhere around 375,000 documents, emails, videos, photos, blah, blah, blah. If that holds up, there will be several tens of thousands of mentions of Trump in these documents. They cannot open that gate.
No.
They cannot open that box. That would be a death of 1,000 billion jajillion cuts, and it will never work out.
Well, I don't think this is going away, regardless of what he does on Epstein. This is going to be around Republicans. It's going to be circling Mike Johnson like flies on a corpse. He'll never get away from it.
No, and Mike Johnson, as an enabler of Trump, really, even at the last minute of the vote, was still trying to derail this thing, and it didn't work. And it didn't connect. But at the end of the day, it was never going to work. These Republicans out there in the country, they know what the audience wants. They know what their MAGA base wants. They want to know what the fuck is in these files.
Right.
They do not trust even Donald Trump, because they want this information and they want it now.
Yeah.
And it's not pretty. I'm getting birthday death threats this morning from some crazy guy.
Christ.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. But anyway, folks, as much as you think we're divided, Andrew, walk us through where this is some stuff we found really interesting. this week because there's more overlap with issues than people think. So walk us through this, Andrew.
Yeah, you tend to see this, and I think part of the reason is we get siloed off into these media ecosystems, and it's easy to believe that there's a lot of strife. But 80% of people said in this Gallup poll that political leaders should compromise with the other party to get things done, even if they don't like some parts of the compromise.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is, I think this speaks to what we saw happening with the shutdown, right? Republicans refused to negotiate the whole time.
Correct.
There was no negotiation.
Ever.
They described Democrats as terrorists and would not, they don't negotiate with terrorists. That's not how our government's meant to be conducted. It's not how politics is meant to go. And most people see that. And I think there's
even the Constitution bros kind of ignore that because real talk, the founders thought that would be what we would do.
Right. Yes. And I think it is still alarming that some 15-16% of people say that violence is a good way to achieve your goals.
Well, the White House apparently thinks so.
Yeah, well, Trump clearly thinks so. But, I think that has a lot to do with his angry senility. So people are in pretty universal agreement on the influence of the wealthy as well. You'll see this, I think, in some polling we'll talk about later, but Americans aren't bad at identifying what's wrong. It's the solutions that are really hard to get to.
That evade them.
Right. Exactly. And there is still some disagreement. Obviously, people don't agree on immigration in particular. I think that's one issue where people are really still
divided. A pretty
divided.
Profound set of party divisions there.
Right. But if you look at this Gallup poll, you can see 88% of people say they're facts and their opinions. So I think the issue here is when it comes to trust in institutions.
Right.
And that's why you see Trump go after institutions, because he hates facts.
If he breaks the institutions, he breaks the truth and the facts.
Right. Again, Americans are pretty good at identifying what's wrong. It's agreeing on how to solve that problem that we can't really get to.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the markets, that's a fun slide. That'll do a lot for economic confidence.
Yeah.
Since we don't produce economic jobs numbers anymore, Trump just makes them up now.
He can say whatever he wants.
Yesterday, he put out a number. It's like 119,000 brand new high-paying jobs.
But it didn't land with the stock market. That didn't produce the rally. It fizzled out. I mean,
yeah, for a minute they got a bump, but it was gone by the afternoon.
By the end of the day.
Yeah.
The economy is sort of this mix of bad news and people saying nothing's going to happen. I don't know. It feels very 2007.
Yeah, it does feel very 2007. It does feel very, like, if the market goes wrong and goes off a cliff one morning, the numbers we're about to show you are only a warm-up act.
Right. And this is the thing, Donald Trump's been touting the stock market his whole term, of course, because it has been booming on the backs of these magnificent 7 companies. But that's sort of the last leg of the stool.
60% of the economic growth in the country coming for 7 companies that don't really hire real people out in the world. That
seems like a bad sign.
It's not really a great economic model, folks.
Yeah, it seems a little unstable. But yeah, last leg of the stool, and if sort of the stock market is what's propping things up. Not great.
Well, so as I sort of teased just now, folks, now we're going to dive into some numbers that I can tell you, and Andrew and I can both tell you, have scared the crap out of our Republican friends across the aisle. New poll, hope for Democrats, red flags for Republicans. Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, so NPR PBS Marist poll found Democrats up 14 over Republicans in a generic ballot
registered question. Too.
Among registered voters. So, the generic ballot question, you get the survey and you're asked, if the election were held today, would you vote for the Democratic congressional candidate or the Republican congressional candidate? So 55% of people said Democrats, and 41% said Republicans. Now these are probably pushed because that question would probably include independents or another candidate.
Right.
But 14 points over Republicans puts, it negates that redistricting nonsense that they've been doing, and it puts solid red districts in play for Democrats.
That Andrew. Let's dive into that for a second, folks. All districts have what's called a PVI, partisan voting index, and normally in an election year, if you say, "Oh, it's a +5 Republican or a +5 Democrat,"
I'm in a +5 R+5 district myself.
Yeah, R+5 or D+5, whatever. Okay. Normally in a year like this, you'd say, okay, anything above an R+5, we're going to stay out of. We're not going to try to go spend money there, put candidates in there. As that number of people's intention to vote Democratic increases, and we should do some math on this at some point, Andrew. I don't know. I don't think it's a 1-to-1, but I think for every 2.5 points of Democratic voter intention, you probably go into another layer. Like at 2.5 points above, you probably go into R+6, and 5 points you go to R+7. I don't have any math, like legitimate math on that, but I bet we could do a regression on that and figure it out.
I'm sure we could. And what this will come down to is
it's a good article.
Yeah, we could easily figure this out, actually. Well, what it'll come down to, the other factor here is the electorate. So it'll be what percentage of voters are voting for the Democrat, or what percentage of voters are Democrats or ideologically left, and what percentage of voters are ideologically right.
Yeah.
So obviously we won't know that till election day 2026, but all of these pollsters are making assumptions. Their samples are based on what they think the electorate will look like in the next election. So it'll be, I think right now, I mean, I don't know what PBR is.
I mean, between Ipsos, Gallup,
and there is
Fox, we've all seen polling that has Democratic voter enthusiasm at levels we have not seen for over a decade.
Yeah, so I think in August or September, Gallup found that party affiliation numbers had finally sort of forked away from each other, where Democrats were gaining in party affiliation and Republicans were losing.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of trends that are telling us that the electorate is going to be more Democratic throughout this election. I mean, look at the last two races, those races in New Jersey and Virginia. The electorate was much more Democratic. So, we make that assumption, and then we look at this generic ballot.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's some math to do behind the scenes, but it's scary for Republicans. They
should be.
These R+4 and 5 districts.
It's scaring them out of Congress, by the way.
Yes. Here we go. Retirements, something always to track. I feel like this year it's just been a bloodbath.
Yeah, and of that number, folks, most of those are Republicans.
A lot of Republicans, a lot of notable Democrats too.
A fair number, but but most of the Democrats are leaving because they're old.
Yes, yeah. Announcements over time between the 2018 and 2026 cycle. This is a hard chart to read, actually.
Yeah,
but you can see
you can see we are way ahead of the curve.
We're ahead of schedule.
Watch that line. It's still headed up, asymptotically approaching infinity. So yeah, I mean, and let's pull that Fox slide next.
So, like I pointed out earlier, Americans know what's wrong.
The woke Fox poll, so liberal, so dangerously so controlled by George Soros.
This is a bad poll for Donald Trump.
This is a bad poll.
I gotta tell you, 76% of people in this poll say that the national economic conditions are not so good or poor. That's 3/4 of the people they polled.
Yep.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Fox
again, registered too. RVs,
registered voters.
Us.
Personal financial situation. This is also very alarming. 60% of people in this poll said not so good or poor. Now, typically in polling, what you see when you ask about someone's personal situation, it's much different from what they ask about the general conditions are.
Correct.
That is really bad.
Isn't it? Would you say it's a rule of thumb? It's almost generally inverted. Like if 60% say the overall economy sucks, but 60% will say my personal situation's okay.
If not completely inverted, near inverted.
Right.
On crime, especially, it's almost always inverted.
Yes.
Of whether or not they're going to be a victim of crime. But this is a common trend in polling, and this defies that trend by having, it's certainly less. 16% fewer are saying it's not so good or poor than the national economic conditions, but that's really, really bad.
This is not great for Republicans, y'all. It's not.
Comes down to affordability. People say that groceries and utilities and housing are too expensive, and healthcare.
Wow. Only a few of the things that Donald Trump promised would all be coming down so fast.
Yeah. Gasoline, of course, is not very expensive because demand is low, because people can't travel, because they don't have enough money. So prices, obviously, people can see prices are getting higher. This next slide, moving on. This is pretty funny, I think. Trump is approaching that Biden number and whether or not his policies have hurt the economy. So that red line there.
Yep.
46% of people say that Trump's economic policies have harmed the economy.
We're in the margin. It's over.
Just 15% say they've helped, which is actually lower than Biden's number. More people say that Trump's economic policies have made no difference. So on balance, I think Trump is less effective per this poll. And
well, also consider this, Andrew. Biden was in the middle of the peak of inflation, the peak of the cost acceleration on groceries, the $10 egg era.
Yeah.
Gas was more expensive then.
There's another fascinating chart from this same poll that shows that people are much more likely to blame Trump for the economic conditions than they were to blame Biden during his term. This one.
There it is.
Yeah. So
wow.
Registered voters overall, 2/3 of registered voters just about are blaming Trump for the economic conditions.
40% of Republicans are blaming Trump.
That's bad. Plain old bad. I mean, there's no way around
There's
it.
no spinning that.
And this, it makes me feel like the media is being very merciful to Trump in many ways, because I remember the drumbeat during the Biden era of the economy sucks. The economy sucks. Inflation is going
every day,
up and up every single day. And you hear a little bit of that. You hear some griping and some maybe speculation on Fox News that things aren't so great. But this tells me that people across the country, Americans, voters, are identifying the problem, and it's Trump and Republicans. Yeah.
And as always, I actually flip back to that for 1 second. As always, we're seeing the same pattern with independents. 2-1 against Trump on every damn polling question. You and I have talked about this like 100 times. Independents are breaking against Trump and the Republicans 2-1.
So
everywhere.
I forgot to mention this earlier when we were looking at that NPR PBS Marist poll. The independents Democrats were up 33 points with independents. Yeah,
they could lose half that number and it would still be an absolute record blowout.
Now, it's important to remember these things are not, we're not looking into a crystal ball.
Nope.
And sometimes these things don't play out the way we hope, especially with Democrats at the helm.
Right.
But, this is kind of promising. Other than crime and the border, Democrats are doing slightly better than what I would anticipate for economic issues.
Jobs, wages, affordability, and healthcare. I'd cluster those things into one package, like we saw 3 weeks ago now in the election.
Yep. Yeah. That's a winning message. And
as much as they think climate change is a winning message, it's not the winning message.
Right.
Those the other things below
that can't carry over the line. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because look, you can see where Trump's going to try to aggregate.
Yeah.
I'm sealing the border and deporting the criminals.
And he still has, this is the border security is the one issue. It's in this Fox poll, an issue poll. I don't know if we have it in the slides, but border security is still the one issue that Trump is above water on. He's underwater on everything else.
Everything else. But he hasn't helped himself on that particularly, I would say, in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I can tell you why you know that, folks. Trump hasn't helped himself on the border issue and on immigration because they stopped all the MAGA media and all the MAGA influencers. When's the last time you saw a story about Portland? They stopped.
Where?
Where exactly? They stopped doing it. They know that they were in free fall over those issues. So
yeah, it didn't work. Although I was surprised to see that CBP and ICE are doing a crackdown in North Carolina, of all places.
In Charlotte, yeah.
Seems a little risky considering.
But yeah, Andrew, it's about the weather. These are a bunch of pussies. They don't want to be in the Chicago winter.
Of course not. But they have to hit that quota.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the issue polling we were talking about. Overall job performance in this Fox poll, he's at 58% disapproval, 41 approve. You can see, like I said, border security, it's the only blue bar that's ahead of a yellow bar on this chart. He's underwater on immigration. He's underwater on foreign policy.
Brutally underwater on the economy and tariffs.
Wow. Really bad on the economy and tariffs. You know, we can repeat this ad infinitum, but Trump's best issue coming into 2024 was the economy. It's what won him the election. He's now drastically underwater on the economy. Yeah, it's bad. He should be at negative 50.
Yes, Ruth. True. He should be at negative 50.
He should. So these are, I mentioned this. November is not a sure thing. Nope. November of next year is not a sure thing for Democrats, considering how people.
I am fascinated that both parties are hated equally.
Yeah, I think Congress has a really, really tarnished reputation.
Yeah.
Especially Mike Johnson's caucus, his leadership. But you can put Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the same bucket with Democrats.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
nobody knows John Thune because he's like a human version of watching paint dry.
He's a nobody.
Well, this is going into the holiday season. Most White Houses want to have a little economic uplift. In the year before the midterms, they want to set the table going into next year with a little bit more.
Yeah.
They do not have that. It do not exist.
Yeah. I think the rest of the year is going to be, with the holiday season coming up and the economy doing the way it is and people feeling the pinch, especially in retail, this doesn't improve.
No.
Better.
It's not helping.
Trump can walk back tariffs all he wants, but in some ways the damage is done.
That's right. I mean, look, even if he stopped all the tariffs right now, it's probably going to take 6 months to unwind it and to get supply chains running again and to get small businesses that have been really hard hit by the cost jumps on everything to get back into production and lower prices.
What does it do? We talk about this. Coral. That's a classic. We talk about this, and it seems like, I think for some people it might sound like we're saying that Democrats can't lose.
They can lose. Believe me, Democrats have an infinite capacity to fuck it up.
It's important that Democrats choose good candidates, and I think there's a lot of risk that the Democratic Party, in its leadership fight that's coming up, I think if Chuck Schumer fights too hard, it becomes a progressive versus moderate sort of thing,
right?
Which would be, I think, overall bad for Democratic primaries in the next year. Not all progressive candidates who are going to primary these moderate Democrats are going to be like Mamdani. Some of them are going to be the left's equivalent of Carrie Lake.
Sadly. And
these are things we got to watch out for. Candidate quality matters even in an election where you have a huge advantage.
Right.
So, it's important for people to be vigilant and to make sure they're not putting crazies on the ballot.
Crazies would be bad.
Yeah, we've seen this for the last few years. If you run a far left socialist in a moderate district against a MAGA, the MAGA might win, and that's a risk that we should not be willing to take, in my opinion.
At all. So, Well, folks, it is going to be a off week for us next week. It is the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope all of you are having a splendid Thanksgiving with your friends and your families. Don't let your drunk MAGA uncle ruin the day, because that would be bad. That's the best thing I've seen all damn day. That's the best thing I've seen all damn day. Oh my God. But we're going to be back with you the week after next with more hijinks and frivolity. Appreciate all of you folks who've tuned into Lincoln Square. We're a fast growing community. This show has got its own little niche audience. I know it's just a couple of bald guys, rambling on about polling, but we do like it, and some of y'all seem to like it too. So we really appreciate you watching. Do us a favor in that YouTube channel. Go hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you know when we're on again. Anyway, folks, have a great day. You can catch all of our content on Lincoln Square and especially on YouTube. So we'll talk to you again soon.